close. 4 million. About almost 4 million people went, and I was one of them.
So that's about the size of Houston. That's if everyone in Houston, or almost everyone in Houston went.
So, this is a picture of Mecca. You have seen this black cube that is called the Kaaba, right? I actually took the picture, but earlier I was actually here. And you see all the little dots? Those are people. There's no space that is free. All people. Yeah, so this is your first floor, right? All right. This is your second floor. Because there are 4 million people, you have to figure out where to fit them, right? So this is why they've built this, like, first floor, second, third, fourth floor. I took this picture from the fourth floor.
Miss Saima, and if y'all look here,
Yeah.
so look, Mecca is right here, and Medina is here, and this is Saudi Arabia. So when she refers to this, you can kind of look and think of like the distance between the two, and kind of like where she was in the Middle East. So just for a reference.
So that's Mecca. And just to give you a sense of how many people, I don't know if you can see the picture that well, but look at how closely packed it is, right? So do you see all the blue here?
Yeah.
Right? And do you see the red and white? And if you look closely, you can see groups of color. So it's because everybody travels as a group, right? So like I went in a group with my American friends, right? I was the only person from New Orleans. And so this group here is like, I think they were Turkish. This group was Indonesian. You had Chinese people, Russian people, Malaysian, Filipino, African, like you name it. There was not a single country that I did not see. It was honestly, it was pretty amazing. And so see, you can see, again, this is even closer, all these people, and that's another group. I forget where they were from. Yeah. So, and I think one of the neat things is that, do you have a question about?
Yeah, they're wearing like pink scarves and like. What about the men? I see some men wearing the scarves like how you have.
Yep.
I see some men wearing.
Good question. Actually, yeah. So some of the men, if it was the daytime, they just covered their hair because Saudi Arabia is a desert, right? So it gets really, really hot. So they kind of want, like, if you wear a hat when you go outside because it's so hot, they don't want to burn their head. So anyways, yeah, so this is just a picture of the Hajj. I think this is Mecca, this is where the Kaaba is, this is where, we did some prayers. Another part that I wanted to show you really quickly is there's a city called Mina, and it actually has tents. It's called the tent city. It is empty the whole year, and then there are actually people there. So can you imagine 4 million people in tents? Yeah, do you have a question?
When you went to Mecca,
Yeah.
where did you sleep?
I was in a hotel in Mecca, and then I went here to Mina, and I was in a tent. Now, this isn't your typical tent, right, where it's like made out of some cloth or fabric or something. This is made out of fiberglass, actually, because it's so hot. It's in the desert, right? And when I tell you it's hot, like New Orleans gets hot, right? I mean, I grew up in Miami, too. I forgot to mention Florida yet. I've lived there, too. But this is like New Orleans times 2, or even 3. It is hot in the desert, okay? And they had little AC units. I don't know if you can see it that well. But, like, literally, we were in these tents for 3 days.
Is it like this or the whole thing?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So this is like the top, and then you have like 20 people per tent. I didn't put pictures of the inside of the tent because it got really messy and I was embarrassed. But yeah, 20 people. Yeah. It was like from there to there, and then till there, and then you had like 10 people here, 10 people here in a tent. I know. Yeah, it's a little. So that's just the tent city. And then if you can imagine, like, there are 4 million people, and you've got to move them. Like Miss Bent showed the map of Saudi Arabia, and there's Mecca and Medina. So we actually flew on a plane from Medina to Mecca. But even outside of Mecca, there are other things you have to do as part of the Hajj. So they built a little train, and so this is some people, like pilgrims, when you go on a pilgrimage, that are getting on the train to go to Mecca. This was like at 5 in the morning, so I was very tired. And then one of the last parts of the Hajj is you sleep under the open sky in this place called Muzdalfa. So 4 million people were just on the open ground. It's kind of intense. And then these are some pictures that my husband took of when we were there. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a man who is praying. I think he's from India. It's this random person. These are some African pilgrims. I think they were Nigerian. And then these were some random guys who wanted us to take their picture, so they said, take our picture. So I don't know who they are, but they wanted us to take their picture. Yeah.
What you was leaving? You was leaving during that time?
Yeah.
That's why they produced it.
So that's a little bit about the Hajj. And I'm sure people might have some questions, so I'm happy to take a couple of questions.
Absolutely. Let's see. Make sure, Miss Bliss brought this up in the last class, and I think it's a really smart. Make sure that when you ask a question, someone hasn't already asked it, and that Miss Saima hasn't already answered the question. So, Paris, go ahead.
How were the trains made when y'all was going to get on them? How were they made? Like these, like regular trains down here?
Yeah. It was like, you could say it was almost like a regular train. It was kind of like, yeah, I would say that.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. How are you?
Say that again. Can we hear that exchange? Say it again.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Pretty cool, huh? Arabic.
So do you know what that means?
Silent hands. What do you think they just said to each other? Bria.
Good morning.
Close.
Another guess? John?
How you doing?
I think he said something about Somalia.
Salam.
Oh, salam. Okay.
It's peace, right? So it means peace be with you. So he said, peace be with you. Totally correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. And I said, walaikum assalam, which means, and also with you. So it's a typical way that like Muslims greet each other. And in fact, if you look, Arabic is very similar to Hebrew. And so some of my Jewish friends, my Jewish friends would say to me, Assalamu alaikum. So that was kind of.
Cool. Mentor's just here to listen. He's on brain break. So continue.
So yeah, I'm just taking questions and then I'll talk about
Okay,
my
cool.
experience because they had a lot of questions and I didn't answer.
Okay,
on
great.
The Hajj part.
We'll take 2, maybe 3 more questions about the Hajj, unless you said something different.
No, I was just saying.
And then we'll let her move on. She has more to tell us too. Okay? Javon, have you asked a question yet? Okay, go ahead. Say it again.
Oh, on the Hajj? Well, so in Mecca, yes, because we stayed in a hotel. But when you go out into the desert, like to Mina, or the tent place, literally all you had was your cell phone. And they did actually have power outlets where we could charge our phones, yeah. Because if you got lost, you had to be able to text your, like I got lost.
You went to Mecca? Have you?
On a Hajj.
Have you ever been to Somalia?
I have not. But there were Somali pilgrims there, actually.
Alright, so that was 2, so
Okay.
go for it. Yep. Otherwise, they'll just continue forever.
Hands down for
Write 'em down.
Write them down.
Write them down. Tyron, come with me.
Right. So I think one of the things that Ms. Bliss asked that I talk about is kind of my experience as an American Muslim, and if, kind of what does that mean to me, and have I ever faced, as you know, I wear the headscarf, the hijab, so I look different, and has anybody treated me differently because of that? I think one of the things, and I know you all will be reading about it, do you want to frame it, or do you want me to try to?
Oh, why don't you, I'd actually like you to go first this
Okay.
time, and then I'll add in if I feel like
Okay.
they need more clarity.
Great. So, I dress differently. I wear the hijab, so that makes me look different. And I have been very fortunate that for the most part, I've been not treated badly. People sometimes look at you and are like, who are you? Or they'll speak really slowly as if you don't speak English, and then I look back and I'm like, I do speak English, I am American. But all in all, great experience. And I think one of the things that you all will be reading about is about 9/11, right? So September 11th.
We already read Wednesday night, and that was about September 11th, okay? So
And
listen carefully. She's
so-
going to speak to that.
On September 11th, I was actually living in Washington, D.C. And I did not live far from the Pentagon, so I heard it.
We didn't talk about the Pentagon part.
All right,
We
so
only
I
talked
lived
about
in
the
D.C.
Twin Towers.
All right, okay. So I was in the U.S. on 9/11. And so one of the things is that, we were all horrified by what happened. I also had friends in New York, too. And we were really sad about it, and we couldn't believe that somebody could do such a thing, right? And then later it came out that the people who had done this act had said that they were Muslim. And this hurt me, right? Because I'm a Muslim and I don't believe in destruction and terrorism like that. And I think one thing that's important is sometimes, I think in every religion, this is, Islam or no religion, you will find people who, because they want the world to be a certain way, they will use a religion or some other thing to say that it is okay to do bad things in the name of that idea, like in the name of some idea or some religion. So yes, there are people who do bad things in the name of Islam, but that is not the majority of people, and I think that's important to share because, and it's important to know each other because you will find if you talk to me or any other Muslim, we are the same just like everyone else, right? We have a different religion, we may have some different practices, but at the heart of it, we're all the same. And one thing I didn't mention is, in the Quran, one of my favorite verses is it says, God has created you into nations and tribes so that you may get to know each other. Not that so you may, so that, not so that you fight or you're divided, but so that you get to know each other.
And our first question that I asked them of the whole unit was, does religion divide or unite people? And it was really interesting what their response is. Like, they're pretty divided, and many of them, raise the roof if you said both. Many of them figured out, well, both.
Yeah.
It can do both, yeah. And, okay, enough race the roof, thank you. Check me just for a minute. Here's what I don't want to have happen in this unit. I don't want you to think that all Muslim people are terrorists, which I have to admit, a lot of American adults, not a lot, some American adults feel that way. They're not educated about it. They don't necessarily, and not just Americans, people in the world sometimes aren't educated and don't realize that one or a small group of people don't represent everyone, right? So it's kind of like saying, if someone in New Orleans who was tall and blonde and played volleyball decided it was a good idea to kill 20 people, and then all of a sudden everyone thought I was a bad person because someone who looked like me did horrible things, right? That's called prejudice, and that's something we're going to talk about later. And all of us have experienced prejudice in our lives in one way or another, but sometimes after big events happen, a certain group will experience it more, right? So like, in this case, because the people who were responsible for 9/11, Osama bin Laden and his terrorist group, said we are Muslims, all of a sudden people around the world started wondering, oh, well, what are Muslims like? And what's important for us to know is that with 1.7 billion Muslims, there are a lot of different people, right? Just like in every religion, there are people who make bad choices. But there are most people that make good choices. So I think it's really important to not tie the 9/11 attacks with Islam. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do because they're not educated and they don't understand that it wasn't promoted by Muslim people. And in fact, the vast majority, 99% or more, of people who identify with Islam rejected it and said, this is awful, this does not represent us, okay? But the group who did it said that it did represent, so a lot of people hung on to that and said, but this group said that they were representing Islam. That was a very small group of people compared to the 1.7 billion, but a lot of Americans have faced a lot of issues with their own prejudices since September 11th because of this. They see people who look like the people who perform the terrorist attacks and immediately assume they must be terrorists too. And that is what we're going to kind of break through with this unit, our stereotypes and realizing that everyone's different and most people in the world are good people, no matter what they look like.
And actually one thing that and thank you for that, so after September 11th, I was here, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was scared because I was afraid of those prejudices because some of my friends were treated badly, afterwards. If they walked out and they looked like me, people either spat on them or called them terrorists. They called my cousin a terrorist in his school. Like, I do know people that have had, bad experiences. But I feel very fortunate, and I wanted to share this because I think people are really good. And a lot of this